First off, I'd like to thank everybody in the FMP that supported kind of this whole journey, and everybody who we've worked close, all the colleagues and everybody. It's been really an amazing headache at times, but it has been it has really flourished into something really beautiful for a lot of us. So just to start off, my presentation deals with Mayan youth in Los Angeles, California, and this is a study on urban cultural options and youth practices. I'd also like to thank Jonathan Fox, which was not able to make it, but which I've been working really close with as well. So as you guys all heard, I am fourth year LALS major, and I'm interested in Mexican migration because I had the opportunity to grow up in Mexico City and in Los Angeles. So I grew up half and half, like half of the time there, and I went to school there, and half of the time here. So during my coming of age, I was able to experience different types of youth identities through these different cultural spaces, which I was able to encounter. So just to kind of give you an idea of how dynamic these two cities are, Mexico City is one of the biggest cities in the world. And Los Angeles happens to be the entertainment capital of the world, as well as the gang capital of the world, or so is that. So just to kind of give you an idea of the type of identities that exist within these spaces, I'm going to give you guys just a little list of kind of the identities that I can think from the top of my head that I grew up in. So amongst these identities, we got the punks, the ponquetos, which is kind of it's like the way Mexicans in Mexico they're referred to. We got the cholos from LA, we got the chuntaros from Monterrey, we got the skinheads, we got the traditionals, which are another type of skinhead. We got the sharps, which are skinheads against racial prejudice, which fight against racism. We got skinheads from all the colors and all the spaces. We had rockers or rockeros, which are slightly different. The rockers here in the United States are way different than the rockeros, which are into like a three and different types of music. We also got the metaleros, or the metalheads. We got the goths, the darketos, or the darks, the hipsters, the fresas, the paisas, the hip hoppers, the tigers, the breakers, the hippies, the yuppies, the neo-hippies, the vegan yuppies, the ravers, the skaters, the greasers, the casuals, the club kids, the nerds, the emos, just to name a few. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of other ones. So many of these youth identities are paired up with their respective youth cultures. These are spaces where the identities are performed like an actor, where each person wears his own respective mask, populating the space as fusing themselves in a world of identities. Youth cultural practices are the production of identities, or what I like to call the masks, which are activated and played out within these stages. So like the stages of the world where youth play out their dreams as they parade around in their masks of infinite many colors and designs, of infinite many selves that unfold through the youth cultures. So just kind of my research or inquiry is kind of how through these masks we gain true freedom to be young, to wear any mask that you want, to be anyone that you want to be. So I found this picture, which I thought it was interesting because it's the mariachis being who they really want to be, right? So I want to open up my presentation by talking about the Ovarian Cycles, which is a bicycle brigade that made their debut about 2 years ago, and which are celebrating this July by doing the female version of what is called the critical mass. Have you guys, just by raise of hands, have you guys ever heard of the critical mass in LA? Have you guys ever heard of the clitoral mass? Well, the clitoral mass is going to be the new upcoming critical mass, which is going to be composed of predominantly all women. It's going to be an all-women ride, and it's happening in July. If you guys are down in LA, you guys are welcome to participate, if you're women, of course. So yeah, the reason I'm bringing this up is because what this shows is that LA brings vibrancy and agency, and it provides a space for these types of groups to emerge, for these types of expressions to be set forth. And this brings us kind of to the question, like, how do Mayan youth reinvent their identities through urban youth cultural practices and through the cultural options offered by the city of Los Angeles? So I would like to start off by defining identity using Gilberto Jimenez, which is a famous sociologist. And he describes identity as the model of significations that provides the construction materials for social identities, while memory would become the principal nutrient of the same. What this means is that all identities have a particular models. And we pretty much identify ourselves through these models that we adopt as we are adopting these identities. Memory also becomes the nutrient of these identities because when we reminisce and when we remember what we were or past identities, it automatically plays out in our present time because we are operating in different spaces in time. We are looking back and thinking about what we were in terms of what we are and what are we becoming. So I'm using two methods to approach this study, and it's the anthropological method, which is composed of formal and informal interviews. And out of these interviews, I was able to formulate a philosophical model, which I call the 3 dimensions of self-awareness. So this model, what it does, it problematizes youth in a way that it looks at locality and migration as the biggest problematic factors in youth development, or as in mainstream youth development. So locality, to understand locality development through a local context, we can analyze factors like migration, prostitution, child labor, and other forms of exploitation that lead to identity dislocation and consequently to a non-linear way of development. What does this mean? This means that if I grew up in the Industrial Revolution, if I grew up in Latin America, if I grew up as a child laborer in the mines of Africa, that means that I'm most likely not going to get to experience what youth is like because I'm jumping from being a child to being an adult, which dislocates that coming of a young person, those stages that you need to develop into what we become as adults. Migration also becomes part of this dislocation as many migrants migrate as young kids. So migration affects the construction of Mayan youth identity and Mayan youth when cultures are non-existing in their local communities. So how can you experience being young if there's no options for youth where you come from, if all there is youth labor and, I don't know, a Zapatista uprising? It becomes really difficult at that point. So the first part of this study is kind of the anthropological side. So we went down to LA, Dr. Cruz and we interviewed a person from Oaxaca, from Chiapas. She was from Chiapas, and she used to be an ex-Zapatista. So as an ex-Zapatista, she grew up in a life of turmoil. She was a child laborer. She was a domestic worker. And basically, I divided her identity in 2 parts. So it's identity A, which is her as a woman, as a Mexicana from Chiapas. She's Celtal, speaks Celtal. She comes from a pseudo-capitalist and a neo-Maoist, almost like an anarcho-syndicalist system, where it's not really defined who's really in control and who gets what. Like it's a really political tragedy what is happening there. She was also a domestic worker when she was at the age of 15, and she was also a student. So she was basically working and saving up money to pay for her education. Once the migration takes place, the new identity is born. This identity comes with new expectations, new systems of belief, new cultures. Since LA is a multicultural space where we encounter different types of ideas, different types of people. So then she realizes her new role in the LA industrial complex from being a domestic worker to being a factory worker, which is a really common trade in the downtown LA area. So then she realizes she finds different types of friends to her job. She realizes that there's different types of identity. She's no longer being policed by her small community. So what happens then is that she decides, well, you know what? I'm going to try drinking. I've never drank before. I want to get drunk. So she goes out. She starts drinking. She falls in love with martinis. She explores LA for martinis. She likes to wear expensive makeup, whereas back home, there was a lot of restrictions of how she would spend her money because men control a lot of these private spaces. So finally, she has autonomy. She's able to purchase any type of makeup that she wants, from the cheap makeup down at the alleys to the most expensive at the mall, the makeup stores, whatever, right? So she's able to find a new identity. And so this new identity is born, and it's like, okay, this is a new mask. Well, where do I play this mask at? Where can I play? Where can I perform this new identity? So she realizes that there is clubs, there's venue, there's spaces, and she also realized that she likes dating white men. right? And so I asked her why. I mean, why not like Mexican man or like, I don't know, African man? Or she's like, well, the thing is that Mexicans, usually when you buy a woman a drink, you know, according to her, we expect sex or we expect some sort of retribution, you know? Whereas white men, they don't. They might buy a drink, and if you don't want anything with them, they might just step away and leave. And she respects that. And it's something that she's never experienced before. Because for her, someone buying you a drink means that. And you drinking it means that you're going to put out, right? You're going to have sex with them.